This is a SandyBoy Productions podcast.
Welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, where we help women remove the overwhelm of living their most holistic life. This is the place to find evidence-based nutrition tactics, healthy lifestyle and wellness tips, abundance mindset, and easily implementable low-tox living strategies so you can rise up to your full potential and protect your family's health. I'm your host, Stacey, certified holistic nutritionist and better living advocate. Now, let's get empowered with some simple swaps that make a big impact for optimal wellness. Hey, Health Crusader. Happy Tuesday, or whatever day you're listening to this podcast, but we typically drop on Tuesday. I hope you're having a good day. It's episode 46 of the Urban Pharmacy Podcast. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Stacey. I'm a lifestyle wellness mentor and holistic nutritionist and founder of the Urban Pharmacy, where I have a new program in addition to other things, but a new program called the Holistic Entrepreneur Society, where I teach women how to increase their health and their wealth in a mindful way and how to take action on their overall holistic lifestyle in general and their goals when it comes to casting their future vision and actually stepping into their ideal life. Today, I want to talk to you about environmental toxins because this is something that I'm super passionate about. Not only, if you have listened to our previous episodes, am I very passionate about plant-based and plant-predominant eating and living, but also decreasing environmental toxins, bettering our mindset, thinking about our community, tapping into our mind-body connection, and so much more. So the whole point here is holistic living is a culmination of many different things. It's spiritual, it's mental, it's physical. And we need to be thinking about our life from a bird's eye view and tackling all of the areas that we can to make our life better. And one thing that we can do today is to start decreasing our environmental toxins because, quite frankly, unfortunately, they are everywhere. And you might have heard in a past episode or two, just in the personal care industry alone, less than 10% of the chemicals that are used in personal care products have been tested for human safety. And there's 85,000 chemicals, more than 85,000 chemicals floating around in commerce right now. And there's virtually no regulation on them in terms of what we can bring into our home and use on our children and use, in cleaning products, etc. So, oh boy. Anyways, I like to help people within my private Facebook group called the Urban Pharmacy, and then also within my society for women entrepreneurs or ambitious women who want to increase their health and their wealth. I help them understand how to make these shifts in their life feasible because, as you know, lifestyle change is one of the hardest things that we'll ever do. Changing the way that we eat, changing the things that we buy, changing the way that we act on a daily basis and our habits is hard. But again, like I said at the beginning of this episode, your environmental toxin shift, this journey shouldn't be as hard as your actual behavior change because this is just simply changing your buying habits. And what we have to do is find reputable companies, which I'm going to go into a little bit more here. But let's get into environmental toxins, okay? I just want you to know that I'm a mentor that believes in the power of accountability. So if you listen to this episode and you find it valuable, be sure to tag me or be sure to share this with somebody else so that we can make a trickle effect and make other people's lives better, okay? So environmental toxin load. Have you ever heard of that? This is a huge factor of health, and the role that body burden and stress can make in getting us to where we want to go is very, very real. And you might not be thinking about that on a normal basis. You might not be thinking about the fact that, the Windex that you're using on your windows could be harming you and your productivity long term, but it can. And it's a really real problem. But we first have to understand what environmental toxins are. Basically, they're a small amount of poison found in the air, water, or the food that we eat, okay? Or the products that we're using. And environmental toxins surround us. Though some are naturally occurring, most are byproducts of industrialization. Like I said, 85,000 chemicals or more are floating around in commerce right now. And these environmental toxins permeate our water, our soil, our air, our household items, our cosmetics, and our food supply. And worst of all, most of the environmental toxins are used in excess every single day. Many of the products that fill the shelves of the local grocery store are swimming with environmental toxins. Some are worse than others, but for pregnant moms, developing children, immune compromised, and even the healthy person, and people in less than desirable health, these seemingly harmless products can do unforeseen damage on our brain, nervous system, DNA, microbiome, and more. And basically, environmental toxins can be chemicals that disrupt the sensitive biological systems of the human body. Environmental toxins can act as endocrine disruptors. They can cause cancer and lead to developmental illnesses, development of chronic illness, and even developmental, like with the brain, illnesses for young children. Neurological disrupting chemicals are allowed in our personal care and in our cleaning products. It's absolutely insane. So these toxins have also been linked to an increased prevalence of autism, Alzheimer's, and other serious neurological disorders. These environmental toxins are a detrimental burden on the human body, and most of which have never been tested again for safety. So, what are some forms of environmental toxins, you might be asking? There are several ways to look at environmental toxins, and we have talked about in past episodes how people and how community matters, right? And actually, like that could be a toxic situation in and of itself. But what I'm talking about today is the actual chemicals themselves. So these are toxins such as pesticides, like Monsanto's Roundup, virtually saturate large crops and commercially raised meat and our water supply, right? So Roundup is an environmental toxin from Monsanto. And Roundup comprises the active ingredient glyphosate, which was approved for commercial use by the US in 1974, just 2 years after DDT was banned. And since its release, Roundup and other manufactured pesticides comprised of glyphosates have been used aggressively in mainstream agriculture. Studies have shown that glyphosates are just as, if not more harmful than DDT. And disease rates have climbed higher than ever. And the increased rate of diseases such as autism have been linked to glyphosate exposure. The detrimental effects of glyphosates are appearing even sooner than those of DDT, which raises the question, why are we still mass producing and endorsing daily use of such highly toxic chemicals? I also want to make this point that 99% of the animals that people are consuming on their plate are commercially factory farmed animal agricultural products. And these animals are consuming these chemicals because these chemicals are on the crops that are being grown to feed these animals. And that is something that you should know. Okay. Another environmental toxin that I think is worth noting is phthalates. Phthalates are plasticizers found in all plastic products, including plastic wrap, Tupperware, and plastic bottles. And plastic is thought to be a major convenience in our modern world, but phthalates cause chronic damage to the endocrine system. And phthalates are found a lot of places and can be found in the word fragrance. So this is one reason why I tell people not to use fragrance. You can still smell good with essential oils and naturally derived fragrances. Okay. The next chemical I want to talk about is fluoride. Fluoride is added to our water supply system and is touted as a boon to healthy teeth and gums. However, fluoride is also linked to cancer and modeling of the teeth. Fluoride is also linked to impaired fetal development and lower IQ scores in children. So, what do environmental toxins cause or potentially exacerbate when we are exposed to them? Well, let me give you a little list. All forms of chronic illness are linked to environmental toxins. Cardiovascular and respiratory issues, musculoskeletal system like impaired motor function issues, gastrointestinal and renal system issues like intestinal dysbiosis and alterations in appetite and weight. There's actually obesogen chemicals that can contribute to weight gain. Is that not crazy or what? Also, endocrine system issues causing hormone disruption, such as thyroid problems. Nervous system issues like ADD and ADHD, which I believe caused many of my issues as a child. And immune system issues and other allergies like food intolerances, etc. So, have you ever heard of the term total body burden? It's also known as environmental toxin load and is a term that is used to describe the accumulation of chemicals and toxins in the body. And these substances accumulate as a result of the food that you eat, what you drink, the air that you breathe, the products that you use on your skin and in your home and in your garden. They also accumulate based on the products used in businesses and industries such as plastics of various kinds, fire retardants, and industrial chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides, and bleaching materials, and those that exist in the environment at large. So, your body burden is affected by your exposure and your body's ability to assimilate and excrete these toxins. Some people are better at it than others. And excretion is highly variable, as I just mentioned, and determined by an individual's genetics, nutritional status, previous antibiotic use, lifestyle, and total the overarching toxic load. An environmental toxic burden is exhibited when the level of net retention exceeds physiological tolerance, and that is when chronic illness rears its ugly head. As the body is unable to remove any of the inorganic toxic chemicals and heavy metals on its own, the body burden then causes issues to our health. I will also go so far to say that people are a major environmental toxin in our life. Like I said before, people can be. But I just want you to be aware of that, okay? And that can actually cause body burden as well in a different way. Obviously not chemically, but this can be a body burden in the sense of stress. So just be really mindful of all of the things going on around you, what you're eating, what you're putting in your body, what you're putting on your body, and who you're hanging out with. So how can we identify these chemicals of concern? You might be wondering, right? Because it can be overwhelming. Well, first off, I just want to let you know about an app called the Environmental Working Group app. This is a great app to help you identify harmful chemicals in personal care and cleaning products, okay? It's going to give you a rating from 1 to 10 on allergy-inducing chemicals, hormone-disrupting chemicals, and cancer-causing agents. And I really just suggest that you stay below a 3 or below, okay? But the biggest offender in chemical environmental toxins is arguably fragrance, with over 3,500 undisclosed chemicals under that umbrella, which can also include heavy metals, PFOAs, and those are a big concern, which we can go into a whole episode about. But I'm actually going to be dropping a blog on that really soon. So go to theurbanpharmacy.com to find out more about PFOAs and PFAs. So here's a true or false question. Can food be an environmental toxin? True or false? Yes. True or false? The air that we breathe can be an environmental toxin. True. The content that we consume on social media and television can be an environmental toxin. Yes, in a sense it can. What about the human body can only handle so many environmental toxins before it becomes ill? True. Here's a list of 5 ways that you can decrease your environmental toxin chemical exposure right now. First is that you can filter your water. The number one way to reduce toxic exposure in your home is to have good water. From washing your kale to cooking your quinoa to basic hydration, water is everything and it's everywhere. With the recent lead contamination crisis in Flint, Michigan and other countries or communities, as well as the relaxing of regulations on pesticides and industrial toxins that run off into our water supplies, we can predict a huge rise in exposure to all kinds of chemical toxins. EWG, also known as the Environmental Working Group, has a great water filter guide so that you can find the right one to fit your budget. Okay, here's your second thing that you can stop doing right now to decrease your environmental toxins, and that is to stop using plastic bottles. Stop buying the water bottles that are in plastic. Plastic bottles are really the ultimate lose-lose situation. They're bad for you and they're bad for the environment. First, there was bisphenol A, also known as BPA, right? Everybody's like, oh, I need to get BPA free, right? It's an endocrine disruptor extraordinaire. It's a terrible chemical. And leaching of this chemical happens when the plastic is warm. So if you're leaving a plastic water bottle in your car, right, on a sunny day, or if you're using Tupperware or plastic containers that you're microwaving your food in, this can leach BPA. But then came BPA free, and that was very full of promise, right? But soon we learned that BPA free plastics contain other additives that are just as bad as BPA. And I could honestly go on about the evils of the plastic bottle and like industry and plastic in general. But there are some plastics that are better than others. Like for instance, the plastic that Beauty Counter uses is a very hard plastic. It's BPA free and free of other BPA mocking chemicals. And typically the harder the plastic, the better. But you just have to know who you're buying from. And you have to know that the companies that are bottling products have plastics that aren't going to be leaching into the product themselves. Plastic also leaves a huge, enormous carbon footprint, and that hurts the environment and increases our dependence on fossil fuels. There are rare exceptions when you can't avoid plastic containers, and like, for instance, with a breast pump, right? But for daily use, tote your own filtered water around in a glass or stainless steel bottle. All right, another thing that you can do to decrease your environmental toxins right now is to get a vacuum with a HEPA filter. Sofas are loaded with flame retardants, unfortunately. Household items such as shower curtains emit VOCs and plastics leach phthalates. Replacing everything immediately might not go with your decor or your budget, but as an immediate solution, you can vacuum with a HEPA filter to get contaminants out of your house while avoiding inhaling toxic chemicals. I also suggest that you dust first before you vacuum. That will really help get some of the chemicals that are floating around in the air out. All right, another tip I have is to wash your hands before eating. And if you know me, you'll understand I'm not a person that is obsessed with hand sanitizers because I don't like to kill all of the beneficial bacteria on my body. It's kind of like taking an antibiotic all the time, but it's really not just about the germs. It's the chemicals that don't belong in our body, such as heavy metals that damage the brain and phthalates added to plastics to keep them soft. It's the plastic bags that our produce is coming in. So wash your hands before eating because you're touching all of those things. And you can't avoid touching everything, right? But you sure can try to keep it from getting into your mouth and touching your food. So if you don't have a sink nearby, you can simply pour some water from your water bottle onto your hands and just rub vigorously with a napkin. Sorry, words are a little bit hard right now. Okay. And just to that note with the hands, avoid hand sanitizers before meals because it can leave your hands coated with something that you don't necessarily want to be eating, such as fragrance, because they're in all of the hand sanitizers, it seems, these days. Okay, another thing you can do to decrease your toxins is to take your shoes off in the house. Your shoes bring in contaminated dust from nearby construction, pesticides recently sprayed near public parks, and bacteria and viruses. And in the house, babies may be licking the floor, crawling on the floor, and putting their fingers in their mouths, while older kids find floor blueberries to be the most delicious of all. Does anybody find that happening with their toddler? Cohen would eat off of the floor all day if I let him. And actually, a lot of the times I do because it's better for his microbiome that way. But if you can take your shoes off, it's going to really decrease your environmental toxin load because, again, there's just so many chemicals sprayed all over the place. And thankfully, you're not left alone to figure all of this out. Again, the EWG is ramping up its work to the federal government and trying to protect our children's health with tips like this out on the internet. So I hope that these tips helped you today. I hope that this was eye-opening, and I hope that you can take the action steps that you need to start decreasing your environmental toxin load. And that does include people, but we'll focus on the actual chemicals today, right? And just one step at a time, start to decrease those toxins and see if you feel better and see if you can share this vital information with a friend or a loved one. All right, until next time, we'll see you soon. Be well. Take care of your body. I'm over here cheering you on because you just finished another episode of The Urban Pharmacy. For today's show notes, head on over to theurbanpharmacy.com and be sure to join us inside our private Facebook group called The Urban Pharmacy, where we share inspiration, live trainings, and holistic living tips to help you build community and the healthy lifestyle that you've always wanted. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button and please consider leaving us a 5-star review. Before we connect again on the next show, follow me on Instagram at The Urban Pharmacy. That's urban with an H and pharmacy with an F. And I can't wait to hear your wellness journey as we get to know each other better. You know, there's truly no better time than now to level up your life. And I am so proud of you for showing up today. Until next time, be well, Health Crusader.